Hey guys. So it's been a very long while since I posted anything to my channel, and I've been going through a lot of health things, I guess you could say, but um, trying to get back into it for sure. So by request, and really, this is a video that I wanted to post about for, I guess, the past year almost, but haven't. Um, I'm going to share my foster story because our story is not necessarily a typical one, but I do think it's one that people should know about, just because a lot of people have this misconception, myself included. A lot of people have this misconception about foster care that you're going to come in and save the day and go through all this training, and you're going to rescue that poor child from foster care, and you're going to adopt them and give them your name, and life will be rosy and sweet, and maybe not smooth sailing all the time, but it will be this beautiful picture of God's redeeming love for all of us. And that's not always the case. So let me back up a little bit. So my husband Ray and we always talked about adoption, like always, even from, before we even had biological kids of our own, we talked about adoption and we wanted to adopt. And so it was always in the background, right? And we had our firstborn in 2011, and couldn't get pregnant again after that, could not. And rather than, really trying and going through fertility methods and things like that, we just kind of accepted that's the way it was going to be. We were going to have one biological son, and then we wanted to adopt. And so foster care was not really ever on our radar, but that's what we learned about as being really the most affordable way to adopt a child, in that it's desperately needed. So we went through the licensing process in 2014. Took us about 6 months to get licensed, I guess. And in 2015, we had 5 kids come through our home. 2015 was a whirlwind for so many reasons. That was also the year, that I was diagnosed with lupus. So there's no coincidence in that, might I say. So 5 kids through our home in 2015. Actually, no, wait, I'm sorry, I got the years wrong. Went through licensing in 2013, started fostering 2014. And then I found out that I was pregnant early 2015 after we took a short hiatus from foster care, going through my lupus diagnosis and everything. Found out I was pregnant, did not foster while I was pregnant. Didn't foster immediately after my daughter was born either in 2015. And then we had a kiddo in 2017 that was with us for a short while. And we went to this event in our area that was basically it was 4 kids that were, I won't say lifers, but longtime kiddos in the foster care system. So we originally went there because I had heard about a 17-year-old girl who was in the foster care system, about to age out, wasn't adopted. And so we originally went there because I wanted more information on her. And we got more information on her. We submitted our home study for her. But while we were there, my husband, Ray, saw this information about another girl. And I'll call her Miracle, because that's what we were going to change her name to. So I did not feel the pull for Miracle, or I guess if I did, I didn't respond to that pull, and I dragged my feet. And so we found out that we were not chosen for the 17-year-old, and I was a little bummed about that. But we just kind of sat, we were just kind of sitting as foster parents, not really doing a whole lot, as we wanted to adopt. So the following year, 2018, oh my gosh, I'm getting my years all mixed up. I guess it was actually, yeah, it was in 2017 when we found out about her the second time. And I knew it was the exact same type of event just a year later. So by now, Miracle was, she was 12 now when we heard about her the second time. And my husband said, even before we walked in the door, if her information is still on one of those tables in there, we got to do something about it. And sure enough, we walk through the door and he scans the tables around the room. Now there's no kids at these events, right? That would be too much. So there's no kids at these events. It's just information about these kids and their CPS workers. And so he scans the room of the tables with all of these kids' pictures and their CPS workers, and he sees Miracle's picture, and he went so fast to her table, like there's no catching him. So I knew at that point it wasn't a coincidence, it was a sign. And so we submitted our home study for Miracle, and I still didn't really have a good feeling about it just because of her age. Like I did not feel qualified at all. I'm just going to say, I didn't feel qualified at all. I knew nothing about being a mom to a 12-year-old, nothing at all. And I was terrified, but I submitted that home study in faith. And I remember I had just dropped off the kids at daycare and I was driving to work and just praying to God about that home study and how I didn't feel qualified, how I wasn't qualified to be her mom. And God said, "You are her mom. She is your child, and you are her mom." And I still get choked up about that because I still feel that way. So we submitted our home study for her, and our licensing agency, who originally got us our, walk through us with our foster care licensing and everything, they were very against us taking in Miracle. And they did not think it was a good idea for our family because our children were so young and we would be violating birth order. And they didn't think it was a good idea, but we dug in our heels and we fought and we fought, we fought. And it took almost a year from the time this is why I didn't want to post this. It took almost a year from the time we submitted our home study until she was on our front porch. And she had a lot of needs. I won't say that she was special needs, but she had a lot of special needs, and they were all behavioral related. And I just want to say this. If you're considering foster care, you need to do your research. You need to pray about it if that's your thing. I mean, I don't know how anybody could foster without having some belief in a higher power, because it's just so hard. But know that, like I said, our story is not typical. It's not typical of every single case, but I want to put it out there just in case there's another foster mom out there that's in the thick of it, that is drug themselves through the mud trying to help a child. And if you go back in my videos, you'll see a short of the top 9 things that I talked about if you're considering foster care. And so this is kind of just a continuation of that. So Miracle came to our house in May of 2018. And what followed for the next 7 months was the hardest journey that our family could have taken on. And by hard, I don't mean I don't mean hard just with scheduling. Now, we had therapy appointments like 3 times a week. I had to quit my job to take care of her. So there was a financial strain there as well. Um, Medication changes all over the place, so trying to get her balanced, having these huge tantrums and meltdowns over the smallest trivial things. And there was one instance where she had asked if she could have a soda before supper. And I said, no, you need to wait, at least wait until I'm done with dinner. And she proceeded to go outside where my son was on the trampoline, and she kicked him off the trampoline. And then she came inside, and my 2-year-old daughter was standing there, didn't really know what was going on, and she kicked her down to the floor. Believe it or not, we didn't give up on her even then. And we kept fighting, and we kept loving, and we kept pouring ourselves into her. And in January 2019, it all came to a head. And despite our best efforts, I had told her to come home from a friend's house via text. And she came in 45 minutes late. I demanded to have her phone as a punishment. And she went into her room and she started kicking the door. And in my mind, I'm afraid she's going to kick her leg through the door, and she's going to hurt herself. she's punching walls. She's hitting her head against the wall. She's kicking the door. She's going to harm herself. I need to do something. And we, because of the level of care that she was at, we were trained in not restricting, that's not the right word for it. But we went through SAMA training to kind of work on addressing those things. The one thing that they did not address with us in the SAMA training is that you never do it alone. And I was alone. My husband was at work. And all in all, what ended up happening is I was assaulted. I was kicked in the face 12 times. I was punched in the head. I had a concussion. She pulled out like 4 huge handfuls of my hair. Incredibly traumatic. I had to go to the hospital, get checked out. I had a concussion. So it wasn't pretty. And what followed for the next 2 years, she bounced to 3 different residential treatment facilities. She sabotaged her care every chance that she could get. And finally, the last place, I guess it was the toughest place that she could go to. And she finally met her match, I guess. And she didn't get kicked out of that place. And then she finally started doing better. And her level of care was knocked down a little bit. And so she got moved into a family home. And it was around that time that Ray and I started talking about taking her back. In my short that I did, one of the things that I mentioned is that not everybody is going to understand. And you won't have full support of everybody. The majority of people that we would have told our story to would have completely understood if we said no emphatically to her coming back into our house. But we said yes. One more time. And I was scared out of my mind. She came back, and that was March of last year, March of 2021. And after a couple suicide attempts, loosely defined suicide attempts, she never actually really did anything. It was just mostly spoken. But I did my due diligence as a mom while working full time and having 2 other small kids. And then our oldest unofficially adopted daughter is here as well. And so we had a very full house and I had a very full schedule. And I got her into the best treatment facility here in McKinney. I got her a full scholarship. I tried so hard. We tried so hard. We did everything that we could think of to help her. And by no measure were the things that we did for her insufficient. And I say that just as much for myself as for everybody else out there that's watching. We did everything that we could for her. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how valuable the care is that you give somebody. Honestly, it doesn't even matter how much you love them. It doesn't matter how much time and effort you pour into that person. And it doesn't have to be a foster kid. This could be your husband, your wife, your adult kids, your drug addict best friend, your alcoholic father. Sometimes you can offer the best care in the world, but if they don't accept it and try to get better, it's not going to matter right here, right now. And that's pretty much what it came to. In August of last year, my husband had just been in a very serious motorcycle accident and could have died in July. And in August, kids go back to school, and she's in school a couple weeks, and she starts a fight and throws a desk across the room for no reason at all. And we had the discussion back and forth that it's like, is she mentally unstable? Can she control this? Or is she in complete control and does she not really know what she's doing? And we landed on the latter side because there have been so many instances in our experience with her over the years where things are fantastic. Things are great. And there have also been so many instances where things just completely fall apart. And the one common denominator is miracle. So we put in our notice. And I guess the saddest part of it was our two biological kids, who at the time were 5 and 10. They weren't even sad. They were relieved because the stress wasn't there, the tension. Even my mom, when she came up here to take care of the kids when Ray was in the hospital after his accident, and she said that she could feel the tension when Miracle walked in the house. And it shouldn't be that way. So where are we at now? Miracle is still a part of our lives, very much. We are still her family. We are still mom and dad to her. Our biological kids are her siblings. And that will not change for us. I actually just saw her 2 days ago for Easter. Took her and the little kids out for Easter. And she tells me that she wants to come home. And it is my right. And it's honestly my duty, for the sake of my younger kids, to say that will never happen. Because though I have full faith that she is a completely changed person. My fear is that our home is not structured enough for her. And we have really seen that she does so much better in a structured environment. And we can't give that to her here. So, I guess in summary, if you are thinking about foster care, watch my short for one. Um, and I don't want my story, our story, to scare you. But I also want you to have the very realistic expectation that your dream may not come true. When we went to that event and first heard about Miracle, we listened to a speaker, amazing speakers on stage at this event, and they were so inspiring and talked about their successful foster adoptive stories. And I had it in my mind, like, that's going to be us someday. We're going to be on stage with Miracle and we're going to proclaim to hundreds of people that this worked. It worked. Like, all of our hard work paid off. That's going to be us someday. We're going to be a success story. We're going to stand in front of a judge and we're going to give her away our name, and she's going to have our name, and we're going to live happily ever after. And I don't want to say never, but it almost gives me more closure just to say that will never happen. So here I am. And you may be wondering, will we ever foster again? And my short answer is no. And it has nothing to do with the system, the CPS system. Lock my door. It has nothing to do with our agency or any foster or adoptive agency out there. It just has to do with my own trauma that I experienced through helping a child from a traumatic place. And not only that, but we do have 2 younger kids. So there's a lot of things to consider, and there's a lot of things to pray about if you're considering foster care. But that's our story. And I just hope it speaks to you in some way.